session was about a new teacher entering the school system. Her name was Miss Bentley, and she was entering into Rosemary Elementary for her first year of teaching. She was going to be a first grade teacher. She met her co-teacher, Mrs. Dennis, and they just, they began to prep their classroom before the students came in for the year, got to know the building, and Miss Dennis had been there for like 10 plus years, so she was a great resource to be able to co-teach with. As they became familiar with each other, she kind of entered this sore subject about budgets, and had said at the beginning of the school, they do a really good job of providing budgets, but by the end of the school year, once things dry up, you have to start supporting yourself almost, and they've experienced budget cuts within their pay, and they've also had to take on other responsibilities, as in being an art teacher inside of their classroom when they're not specifically an art teacher. So the way Miss Bentley handled this was she just, went home, took a night to herself, and then came back the next day for the first day of school and greeted her students like it wasn't going to be a big issue for the year.
So that leads to our question being, how do rural school teachers in the Midwest prepare to respond to budget cuts that are needed for general curriculum to be effective?
So state funds so the funding for our budgets comes from the state, and the state funds these through property taxes. So I was doing some research and found some total expenditures for the fiscal year of 2012, and Iowa had a little bit above $1 million budget for their total expenditures, and we ranked 24th from the top compared to California, who had the most. They had an $8.5 million budget, and Texas had a $6 million budget. And there's other schools below us that had $300,000 budget. So I mean, we're not the worst off, but clearly we're not the best either. The recession has really affected budgets, and according to Capital Ideas Council of State Governments, there's an article titled Education Budget Cuts, and a quote from it was, "Some of the deepest cuts to the K-12 education came from last year's American Recovery and Reinvestment Act when they ran out." Teachers responded to this by saying that the government was sending them inadequate funds, and because of the inadequate funds, it really affects the students' achievement.
So the next question to ask is, who directly is being targeted? And when schools need to make cuts, the first cuts that usually come to their mind is just cutting supplies in the classroom, not updating computers, not updating textbooks, stuff like that. And then when it comes to supplies in the classroom, teachers usually can go to the school and get that money, but now that money will just be coming out of the teacher's own pocket because the school can't afford to fund that. Another option for the schools would be just offering early retirement benefits to teachers, so that they don't have to make cuts at direct teachers and just getting the older ones to retire. And then when they do have to hire new teachers, they'll hire new teachers just graduated because their pay will be lower. And then when it comes to absolutely needing to cut supplies, they cut that. They did the early retirement. Worst comes to worst is cutting the specials classes, art, music, PE. Sometimes counselors are half-time, just stuff like that, and that will rely on the general education teachers having to teach gym, art, music, and that's a lot more for them to learn. And then according to an article we found, teachers are being asked to do more with less, and it's difficult to meet these standards when the budget is cut. So overall, it just comes down to us being in the education program and learning to be teachers. We have to go out in the world to prepare to be teachers that will be dealing with budget cuts. We just have to use our creativity and whatever we can, whatever money and supplies we do have to make up for those budget cuts.
Alright, so then we found 3 solutions, and our first solution is for schools to offer early retirement, which allows the older or current teachers to retire earlier, so then the schools can hire new teachers at a lower cost to pay them. Our second solution is a second grade teacher said, when budget cuts occur, teachers have to spend more money out of their own pocket, and in order to reduce some spending or prevent budget cuts to happen with supplies, teachers can take advantage of Pinterest ideas and DIY projects and Goodwill and book drives and free apps, downloads, websites, things like that. Although these do cost money, the difference is a good amount lower and would help prevent the cut on supplies in classrooms. As we found out, special areas get cut first, and so teachers are going to have to learn and get more knowledge in these areas for their own classroom. Subject areas such as music, art, gym, computers are often cut first because classroom teachers could somewhat teach these areas in their own classroom instead of having to pay a separate teacher to teach these subjects. However, this is possible for classroom teachers to teach that, but it is often very difficult, especially because current teachers don't have the exact knowledge that they need to incorporate all these subjects. Also, then, teachers are required to take up their own work time and free periods to supervise the lunchroom, the gym, the computer lab, and other things like that. And as the text states, creativity is very important in a child's learning, and as a result, teachers would need to use more and more creativity in their lesson plans and topics if these subjects were to get cut. In an article we found titled Everyday Advocacy is an article about cutting the libraries and school systems, and solutions they mentioned to take action before the cut is to happen is to maintain a blog or social media site and to establish a communication network and document its importance. These solutions may not be long-term, but they provide information to school boards and to the administration for why we value such subject areas is so important.
And then leading on from that, the standard that our question most relates to would be, I'll just read it quick. The practitioner understands how students learn and develop and provides learning opportunities that support intellectual, career, social, and personal development. This meaning about all the questions or the sources that get cut first. So the elimination of specials is basically hurting both the student and the teacher, the students and the teacher, because like Taylor mentioned, the teachers then have to teach the computer classes and the art classes and the music classes, and as we all know, going through this major, you might not be strong in art, but you could be a genius in math, or vice versa. So for those teachers that aren't really good in music or math or whatever, they're actually hurting their own students, but they don't have the choice. So they could be doing fun activities like everyone let's sing a song or whatever, but then those kids are missing out on what we grew up doing, like recorder and the bells and just different things like that. Because for me personally, as soon as I got out of elementary school, all the specials were cut from my school, and all my younger siblings didn't get to do any of that. So they had a totally different upbringing in school than I even got. And so it's hard to see firsthand, and I definitely, as a teacher, don't want to see my students go through it after watching my siblings do it. And then just like I mentioned, both the students and teachers suffer. It's hard to come back from that. Like we learned in our other classes, once you have one bad year of being with reading or something, once you get one whole year behind, it's hard to catch up. And then you're always feeling down on yourself as a student, and it's hard for the teacher to be able to lift you back up. So this is all coming from just a simple budget cut, and then you lose this, and then this, and then this, and it affects the students all around, wholeheartedly. So basically, the bottom line is we're depriving the students to reach their full potential in different creativity levels, and it's not the teacher's choice, it's not their fault. So with the solutions that Janie mentioned, like the early retirement and the supplying your students with their own utensils and everything, then you can help make the difference, but in the end, there's just no choice, and we're still working on that solution, I guess.
In some research methods we use Google Scholar, EBSCO, and ERIC, and we search terms like education and budget, finance and budget, elementary education and finances, and